On a warm August afternoon in 2001, the small town of Prattville, Alabama, felt like any other peaceful summer day. Children played in yards, neighbors exchanged greetings, and the calm rhythm of life continued along the quiet streets of the Candlestick Mobile Home Park. But that afternoon, the ordinary would shatter. 11-year-old Shannon Paulk, a bright and lively girl, vanished without a trace, leaving her family, friends, and an entire community in shock and fear. What started as a normal day would soon become a haunting mystery that would remain unsolved for years, a case that would leave questions lingering over Prattville for decades. Before we continue, welcome to the Cold Case Archive, where we revisit real stories of mystery, justice, and the pursuit of truth. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. And if you've been with us from the beginning, thank you for being part of this journey, where every file tells a story. Shannon Paulk was known for her warm smile, her playful spirit, and a kindness that drew people to her. She lived with her mother, Marie Stroud, and her two siblings in the Candlestick Mobile Home Park, a close-knit community where neighbors often looked out for one another. That afternoon, Shannon was seen playing outside, enjoying the summer air and talking with friends. No one could have predicted that these would be the last moments she would be seen alive by the people who loved her most. By the evening, however, her absence became impossible to ignore. Her mother returned home from work, expecting to find Shannon in the familiar surroundings of their home or perhaps chatting with friends in the neighborhood. Instead, she was met with silence. The realization that her daughter was missing brought an immediate sense of dread. Marie called the Prattville Police Department to report her missing, triggering the first official steps in what would become a prolonged and painstaking investigation. Authorities quickly coordinated a search, involving officers combing the immediate area, speaking with neighbors, and canvassing the community for witnesses. Friends and family joined in, desperately calling out Shannon's name into the darkening streets, hoping for any sign of her. Flyers were printed and distributed, and within hours, Shannon's disappearance became a story covered by local news outlets, reaching audiences far beyond Prattville. Despite the rapid mobilization and the intense concern of the community, no trace of Shannon could be found. The first 48 hours in a missing child case are often the most critical, and yet, even with the urgency of her disappearance, Shannon remained elusive. Reports indicated that she had been seen speaking with an unknown man in a tan or gold four-door sedan shortly before vanishing, but attempts to identify this individual yielded no leads. The initial days were filled with mounting tension, as hope for Shannon's safe return clashed with the creeping fear that something far more sinister had occurred. As the search extended into the following days, volunteers from Prattville and neighboring towns joined in the efforts, combing the woods, empty lots, and fields surrounding the Candlestick Mobile Home Park. Families distributed posters, local businesses displayed signs, and every potential lead was followed. News coverage highlighted both the scale of the search and the desperation of Shannon's family, while authorities worked tirelessly to piece together her last known movements. Yet, with each passing day, the community's anxiety grew as tangible leads remained scarce. By the time weeks had passed, the once active search began to yield grim suspicions. The unrelenting quiet from any credible tips created an atmosphere of unease. Neighbors who had once called out for Shannon into the twilight now whispered about the worst possibilities, afraid of what the silence might mean. For the Paulk family, every day that passed without news was an agonizing reminder of uncertainty, as they clung to hope while facing the possibility that Shannon's disappearance was no ordinary missing child case. Nearly 2 months later, on October 6, 2001, local hunters exploring a remote wooded area north of Prattville stumbled upon a discovery that would confirm the community's darkest fears. Shannon's remains were found, concealed within a black plastic bag and bound with rope. The revelation was devastating. Shannon had been abducted, and her life had been tragically ended far too soon. The discovery not only confirmed the worst suspicions of her family but also sent shockwaves through the town that had held on to hope for weeks. The investigation following the discovery of Shannon's remains revealed chilling details. Authorities confirmed that the location where her body was found was roughly 10 miles north of Prattville, a secluded area that suggested premeditation. The question of who could commit such an act and why consumed investigators, families, and the wider public alike. It was a question that would remain unanswered for years, as the perpetrator eluded identification despite the combined efforts of law enforcement and the community. Even in the face of this tragedy, the community of Prattville refused to remain silent. Vigils were held, local newspapers covered the ongoing investigation, and public appeals for information continued. The Paulk family never wavered in their determination to find justice for Shannon. Over time, the case drew attention from the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency's Cold Case Unit, which brought advanced investigative techniques to bear, hoping to uncover what had gone unnoticed in the initial search and early stages of the investigation. The disappearance and death of Shannon Paulk became a defining story for Prattville, symbolizing both the fragility of life and the perseverance of a community determined to honor the memory of one of its youngest residents. Investigators worked to reconstruct her final hours, relying on witness statements, media reports, and whatever forensic evidence could be recovered. Yet, for many years, the mystery persisted, leaving questions hanging in the air about the events that led to Shannon being taken from her home and the motives of the person responsible. As the investigation extended into the following years, the community never forgot Shannon. Her family and supporters continued to hold vigils, post flyers, and speak to media outlets to keep attention on the case. Public awareness remained high, fueled by the desire to prevent her story from being lost to time. And as technology advanced, law enforcement hoped that new forensic tools, such as DNA testing and database comparisons, might finally shed light on the perpetrator and bring closure to a case that had haunted Alabama for decades. Even now, Shannon's story resonates beyond the borders of Prattville. It is a haunting reminder of the dangers that can lurk even in seemingly safe communities, and of the importance of perseverance in the pursuit of justice. Her disappearance and tragic death call on viewers to consider the fragility of childhood, the courage of families who refuse to give up, and the relentless work of investigators who strive to bring resolution to cold cases, no matter how many years have passed. As we reflect on Shannon's story, we invite you to consider this. What might have been the final moments leading to her abduction? Are there details overlooked that could have helped investigators at the time? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Your perspective could contribute to keeping this case in the public eye. The search for Shannon Paulk would eventually lead authorities to new investigative avenues and breakthroughs, but the initial days set the stage for a case that would challenge the limits of time, technology, and patience. From the moment she disappeared, the community of Prattville was forever changed, and the story of her abduction remains a somber reminder of the work still required to bring justice to victims of such tragic crimes. The evening of Shannon Paulk's disappearance descended upon Prattville with a sense of eerie stillness that would not be easily shaken. What had been a quiet summer day was now overshadowed by fear, uncertainty, and a frantic search for an 11-year-old girl who had vanished from her own neighborhood. In Candlestick Mobile Home Park, families who had known each other for years were suddenly aware of a terrible vulnerability, realizing that even in the safety of their homes, tragedy could strike without warning. As night fell, the urgency to locate Shannon intensified. Her mother, Marie Stroud, driven by desperation and fear, had alerted the Prattville Police Department. Officers mobilized quickly, canvassing every street, yard, and alleyway in the mobile home park. Their search was thorough, systematic, and immediate, yet the darkness seemed to conceal any sign of the missing child. Neighbors joined in, their voices carrying through the night as they called out Shannon's name, hoping against hope that she would answer. Every rustle of leaves, every shadow, became a source of anxiety and vigilance, as the community grappled with the horrifying possibility that something more sinister had occurred. Local media outlets were swift to cover the disappearance, broadcasting alerts and descriptions of Shannon across television and radio networks throughout Prattville and the surrounding areas. Flyers with her photo and vital details were quickly printed and distributed in homes, businesses, schools, and public spaces. Every citizen became a potential observer, every passerby a possible witness. The entire region seemed to move in unison, unified by the fear and urgency of a child missing in their midst. In a town where neighbors often watched out for one another, Shannon's disappearance shattered the sense of security that residents had long taken for granted. The search rapidly expanded beyond the immediate vicinity of Candlestick Mobile Home Park. Volunteers and family members scoured woods, fields, and roadways extending several miles from Shannon's home. Coordinated teams of law enforcement officers worked in shifts, covering areas methodically to ensure no stone was left unturned. Families who had never ventured far from the neighborhood were now exploring unfamiliar woods and back roads, guided by concern and determination. The sense of collective responsibility and solidarity became palpable as strangers, friends, and neighbors worked side by side in the pursuit of a missing child. Despite the expansive search, the first days yielded no concrete leads. Witnesses described seeing a man in a tan or gold four-door sedan near the time of Shannon's disappearance, but identifying the individual proved impossible. Tips and potential sightings were numerous yet unconfirmed, leaving investigators chasing shadows in a search that seemed to grow colder with each passing hour. The realization began to settle over the community. Shannon's disappearance was not merely a case of a child wandering off. Fear and uncertainty began to dominate conversations, while the weight of the unknown pressed heavily on every resident. Throughout the first week, schools, churches, and community centers became impromptu command hubs for organizing volunteers, coordinating search parties, and holding prayer vigils. Parents watched their own children with heightened vigilance, their routines disrupted by worry and fear. Every hallway, every corner of the mobile home park, became a place of heightened awareness, a constant reminder of Shannon's absence. The streets, once a canvas of ordinary summer life, had transformed into zones of vigilance and collective anxiety. Media coverage continued to amplify the urgency. Local newspapers provided daily updates on the search, interviews with family members, and appeals for information. Television stations aired segments that captured the concern and dedication of volunteers combing the surrounding woods and fields. Radio stations repeated alerts and shared tips submitted by the public, keeping Shannon's disappearance firmly in the public eye. The story quickly gained traction beyond Prattville, as neighbors in surrounding counties joined in the effort, and concerned citizens called in with tips and information, hoping to aid in locating Shannon. As the search extended into the second week, the emotional toll on the community grew. Volunteers faced physical exhaustion from long days and nights in the woods, while the mental strain of searching for a missing child weighed heavily on everyone involved. Neighbors who had once exchanged casual greetings now spoke in hushed tones, sharing fear and uncertainty. Every passing day without a lead heightened the sense of urgency and despair, and families struggled to balance hope with the grim possibility that Shannon might never return home safely. The search revealed the extraordinary commitment of the community but also highlighted the challenges faced by law enforcement. Investigators meticulously documented every lead, every tip, and every potential sighting, conducting interviews with neighbors, family members, and anyone who might have been near Shannon that day. Despite these thorough efforts, no definitive evidence emerged to indicate her location. The absence of clear clues underscored both the complexity of the case and the limitations faced by law enforcement in a sprawling search with minimal initial evidence. During this time, public engagement became critical. Vigils were held in the evenings, with neighbors and volunteers gathering to pray and call attention to Shannon's disappearance. Candlelight gatherings illuminated streets and yards, serving as a visual reminder that the community had not forgotten the young girl who had vanished. Each vigil reinforced the collective hope that Shannon could still be found, while simultaneously heightening the emotional weight of the situation. The community's commitment became a testament to the resilience and determination of those unwilling to let a child's disappearance fade into silence. One of the most challenging aspects of the search was the overwhelming number of leads and tips, many of which proved to be false. Investigators had to carefully separate actionable information from speculation, ensuring that every potential lead was pursued without diverting resources from critical areas. The presence of a tan or gold sedan seen near the time of her disappearance remained a focal point, but identifying the driver proved impossible despite exhaustive efforts. This ambiguity created tension and frustration among both investigators and community members, as hope and fear battled with each passing day. Even as hope waned, the Prattville community refused to relent. Volunteers continued to patrol streets, canvass neighborhoods, and search surrounding woods. Families shared information with the police, while local media kept Shannon's story in the spotlight. The sheer scale of involvement, from schoolchildren leaving notes of encouragement to neighbors sleeping outdoors during searches, demonstrated the profound impact of a single tragedy on an entire town. Shannon's disappearance had mobilized the community in ways few could have anticipated, highlighting both vulnerability and the collective power of people united by a common goal. As the initial search stretched into weeks, investigators began to prepare for the grim possibility that Shannon might have been abducted and harmed. Every detail from the first hours became critical, from witness statements to the exact locations of her last known sighting. Law enforcement worked tirelessly retracing steps and reviewing all evidence collected from the mobile home park and surrounding areas. While the search had yet to yield physical clues, the persistence of authorities and volunteers kept the case active, ensuring that no lead would be dismissed, no tip ignored, and no avenue unexplored. Throughout this period, one haunting question lingered over the community: how could a young girl simply disappear from her own neighborhood without a trace? As viewers and supporters of cold cases, we invite you to consider this as well. What would you do if someone you loved vanished under similar circumstances? Could there be details overlooked that might make a difference today? Share your thoughts in the comments below, as reflecting on these questions is an important part of keeping Shannon's case alive in public consciousness. The initial weeks of searching, canvassing, and public engagement laid the groundwork for what would become a long-term investigation. Even though Shannon remained missing, the community's dedication ensured that the case would not be forgotten. Their vigilance, public appeals, and relentless searches reinforced a crucial lesson in cold cases. Sustained community attention and pressure can often be the difference between a case fading away and one that eventually receives the breakthroughs it deserves. As the search wound down without locating Shannon alive, law enforcement shifted focus from immediate recovery to long-term investigation. Evidence collected from canvassing efforts, witness accounts, and media reports became vital to building a foundation for forensic review and future investigative techniques. The realization that foul play was likely set the stage for the grim discoveries that would follow, and investigators knew that patience, precision, and persistence would be key in uncovering the truth. The calm that had settled over Prattville in the weeks following Shannon Paulk's disappearance was shattered in the early hours of October 6, 2001. Local hunters, navigating a remote wooded area roughly 10 miles north of Candlestick Mobile Home Park, stumbled upon a discovery that would confirm the community's worst fears. Concealed among dense underbrush, Shannon's remains were found in a black plastic bag, bound with rope, a chilling testament to the danger she had faced. News of the discovery traveled quickly through Prattville, and the fragile hope that had sustained Shannon's family and the community began to crumble, replaced by profound grief, disbelief, and mounting outrage. The discovery marked a decisive turning point in the investigation. What had been classified as a missing child case was now officially treated as a homicide. Officers from the Prattville Police Department, supported by the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency, arrived at the scene to secure the area. Every detail was documented with painstaking care. Forensic teams began a meticulous examination of the surrounding terrain, searching for additional evidence: footprints, discarded items, or any trace that might provide clues about the perpetrator's movements. Every fragment of information was treated as potentially critical, as authorities understood that even the smallest detail could become the key to solving the case. For Shannon's family, the discovery was a moment of devastating clarity. Weeks of anxious waiting were replaced by an overwhelming sorrow. Marie Stroud and her children were confronted with the stark reality that Shannon's life had been violently taken. The emotional impact rippled through the community. Neighbors who had once joined search parties in the hope of her safe return now shared in a collective mourning. Local media covered the development extensively, reflecting the gravity of the situation and the profound sense of loss that engulfed Prattville. Investigators immediately began reconstructing the timeline of Shannon's final hours. Reports confirmed that she had last been seen speaking with an unidentified man near the mobile home park, a critical lead that had remained unresolved. Forensic specialists collected evidence from the scene, carefully handling Shannon's remains, the plastic bag and rope binding, all while photographing and documenting every detail. The goal was to preserve the integrity of the evidence for potential analysis using evolving forensic techniques, including DNA testing that had advanced significantly in the years following the abduction. The location where Shannon was discovered was remote, secluded, and difficult to access, a stark contrast to the familiar surroundings of her neighborhood. This suggested premeditation on the part of the perpetrator and raised questions about the planning involved in the abduction. Investigators theorized about the possible route taken to transport Shannon from her home to the wooded area. The deliberate concealment and binding of her body indicated that the crime was carefully executed, further intensifying the urgency to identify and apprehend the person responsible. The community's reaction to the discovery was immediate and visceral. Parents held their children tightly, neighbors shared in grief and outrage, and the local media reported the news with somber coverage, emphasizing the severity of the crime. Candlestick Mobile Home Park and surrounding areas were filled with candlelight vigils, floral tributes, and memorial gatherings. Each act of remembrance served as both a tribute to Shannon and a reminder of the profound impact her disappearance and death had on the community. The solidarity displayed reflected not only mourning but also the determination to see justice served. Authorities faced immense pressure to identify the perpetrator quickly. Every lead collected during the initial disappearance was re-examined with renewed intensity. Witness accounts, including the sighting of the tan or gold four-door sedan, were reviewed repeatedly. Investigators understood that the timeline, combined with the physical evidence from the wooded area, could provide critical insights if analyzed correctly. The case demanded a delicate balance of thorough forensic investigation and strategic follow-up on any potential tip, no matter how minor it initially appeared. Despite the grim circumstances, the broader community remained engaged. Local residents continued to assist authorities by providing knowledge about the terrain, the behavior of residents near the mobile home park, and any potential eyewitness accounts that might have been overlooked. Schools and churches organized community meetings to discuss safety and prevention, and volunteers remained in close contact with law enforcement, offering assistance where possible. The shared commitment to finding answers highlighted the role that community involvement plays in keeping a case active and ensuring that it does not fade from public attention. At this juncture, one haunting question weighed heavily over both the community and viewers. How could a child vanish from a familiar neighborhood and be hidden miles away without a trace? We ask you to reflect on this as well. If confronted with a case like Shannon's, what steps might you take to uncover hidden evidence? Could subtle, seemingly insignificant observations, an overlooked vehicle, a passerby, or an item out of place, make the difference in identifying the perpetrator? Sharing your thoughts in the comments helps maintain public focus on cases like Shannon's, which depend on continued awareness for justice. The discovery of Shannon's remains also prompted law enforcement to broaden their investigative approach. Officers cross-referenced similar abductions and homicides in Alabama and surrounding states, searching for patterns and connections. Behavioral profiling, geographic analysis, and forensic review were applied rigorously. The goal was to identify any individual who might fit the profile suggested by the evidence, whether through prior offenses, known movements, or other behavioral markers. Every investigative angle was pursued with precision, and the case remained active despite the challenges inherent in a crime that initially left so few leads. Over the subsequent weeks, the community of Prattville remained engaged in acts of remembrance and vigilance. Annual vigils were organized, media outlets continued to cover updates, and the case maintained a presence in public consciousness. For Shannon's family, these acts were more than symbolic. They were a lifeline, a reminder that her story had not been forgotten and that the search for justice was ongoing. For law enforcement, the sustained public attention was invaluable, providing a constant reminder that the case demanded resolution. The story of Shannon Paulk's discovery serves as a haunting testament to both the cruelty a child can face and the resilience of a community committed to seeking justice. It underscores the critical importance of forensic evidence, witness accounts, and public engagement in solving cold cases. Each detail, no matter how small, can play a pivotal role, and the combination of community vigilance and investigative diligence becomes the foundation upon which justice can ultimately be achieved. Following the devastating discovery of Shannon Paulk's remains, the case transitioned from a frantic search to a painstaking, long-term investigation. Law enforcement quickly recognized that the resolution of Shannon's abduction and murder would not come overnight. Every detail collected during the initial disappearance, the witness statements, the black plastic bag, the rope bindings, and even minor observations from neighbors, became crucial pieces of a complex puzzle. The Prattville Police Department, working alongside the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency, remained committed to keeping the case active, fully aware that advances in forensic technology might eventually provide the breakthrough investigators had long sought. From the very beginning, the preservation of evidence was paramount. Items recovered from both the mobile home park and the wooded area where Shannon's body was found were meticulously cataloged, sealed, and stored under strict conditions to prevent contamination. This careful approach ensured that every hair, fiber, and DNA trace remained viable for analysis years later. Investigators knew that the smallest piece of material could become the key to identifying the perpetrator, and every effort was made to maintain the integrity of the evidence. Over the following years, the case remained in the active files of the Prattville Police Department. Detectives periodically revisited witness statements, re-examined initial observations, and explored potential connections to other unsolved cases in Alabama and neighboring states. Behavioral profiling and geographic analysis were applied to understand possible suspect patterns, while investigators meticulously tracked all tips and leads. Although the work was painstaking and progress often slow, the investigators understood that persistence was critical in cold cases, where the passage of time could simultaneously obscure and reveal vital evidence. The community, still grappling with grief, remained engaged in supporting the investigation. Shannon's family, neighbors, and local advocates continued to press for public attention, ensuring that the case did not fade into obscurity. Annual memorials, media coverage, and public outreach kept Shannon's story alive, reinforcing the importance of vigilance and community involvement. This sustained awareness would later prove instrumental in ensuring that new technological advances could be applied promptly to the preserved evidence. One of the most significant challenges of long-term investigations lies in technological limitations. In the early 2000s, DNA analysis was effective but constrained by the sensitivity of available testing methods. Many subtle traces went undetected, and potential leads remained cold simply because the tools to connect them did not yet exist. However, as forensic science progressed, previously untestable samples could be re-examined with remarkable precision. Each advancement provided investigators with renewed hope that the perpetrator could finally be identified. The breakthrough in Shannon's case came when forensic analysts applied modern DNA profiling to the evidence collected from the original crime scene. Advanced testing techniques, unavailable in 2001, allowed investigators to detect even minute traces of DNA that had previously gone unnoticed. By generating a genetic profile from these samples, investigators obtained a tangible lead. This moment represented a turning point. A case that had remained unsolved for over 2 decades suddenly had a new, actionable direction. Persistence played a critical role in this development. The combination of careful evidence preservation, periodic case reviews, and the application of evolving forensic techniques exemplified the long-term commitment required to solve cold cases. Investigators recognized that time, while initially a barrier, had become an ally, allowing technology to catch up to the crime. Shannon Paulk's case highlighted the power of vigilance, meticulous documentation, and the enduring collaboration between law enforcement and the community. Once the DNA profile was obtained, investigators cross-referenced it with national databases, examined criminal records, and explored connections to known offenders. The profile provided insight into the suspect's potential identity, linking the investigation to a specific individual. This cumulative effort, the combination of forensic analysis, witness accounts, and meticulous investigative work, culminated in a breakthrough that had long eluded authorities. Every piece of evidence collected over the years suddenly fit into a clearer picture, offering hope that justice could finally be achieved. Throughout this phase of the investigation, the importance of continued public engagement remained evident. Even decades after Shannon's disappearance, awareness campaigns, media updates, and community involvement ensured that the case retained visibility. This sustained attention can be critical in cold cases, where new leads may emerge from public tips or overlooked details. In Shannon's case, the ongoing focus by both law enforcement and the community created the environment necessary for forensic advancements to produce meaningful results. At this juncture, one question emerges for reflection: how many critical clues might be overlooked in the initial chaos of an investigation? And how much does persistence truly matter in solving cold cases? We ask viewers to consider this. If you were part of the team revisiting Shannon's case years later, which steps would you prioritize to ensure no detail went unexamined? Could revisiting witness statements, reanalyzing evidence, or applying new technology uncover the key to justice? Your thoughts in the comments help keep cases like Shannon's in the public eye and honor the persistence of those seeking answers. The DNA breakthrough was not just a procedural victory, it represented the culmination of decades of methodical work. Law enforcement applied modern genetic analysis, database cross-referencing, and behavioral profiling to piece together the identity of the suspect. This comprehensive approach illustrates how long-term dedication, combined with technological advancements, can bring resolution to even the most challenging cases. Shannon's story demonstrates that justice, though delayed, is achievable when investigators, families, and communities remain steadfast in their pursuit. Finally, as law enforcement prepared for the arrest, careful planning ensured that all procedures met strict legal and evidentiary standards. Every piece of evidence was verified, and investigative steps were documented to withstand scrutiny in court. For Shannon's family and the Prattville community, this progress symbolized more than procedural success. It represented a commitment to justice and a reminder that persistence and attention can ultimately bring closure, even after decades of uncertainty. The long-term investigation into Shannon Paulk's abduction and murder exemplifies the power of forensic science, diligence, and public awareness. Years of meticulous evidence preservation, careful review, and unwavering attention culminated in a breakthrough that had once seemed impossible. While the discovery of Shannon's remains in 2001 marked a moment of heartbreak, the eventual identification of a suspect decades later represented a critical step toward justice, closure, and accountability. The breakthrough in Shannon Paulk's case finally led investigators to a suspect in 2022, more than 2 decades after her disappearance. Advanced DNA analysis and cross-referencing with national databases provided law enforcement with a tangible lead after years of painstaking investigation. The revelation sent shockwaves through Prattville, its surrounding communities, and especially Shannon's family, who had endured prolonged uncertainty and heartbreak. What had once been a cold, unresolved case now became an active pursuit of justice. Authorities moved with precision. Arresting a suspect in a high-profile case required meticulous planning to ensure safety, protect evidence integrity, and prepare for the legal scrutiny that inevitably follows decades-old cases. Officers from the Prattville Police Department, working closely with the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency, coordinated surveillance, background checks, and operational strategy to ensure a smooth apprehension. Every step was carefully timed and executed, reflecting both the sensitivity of the case and the critical need to preserve the chain of evidence. The arrest itself was a moment of profound significance. For Shannon's family, the sight of law enforcement taking decisive action elicited a complex mix of relief, sorrow, and cautious hope. Decades of uncertainty were finally confronted with tangible progress. Community members who had remained invested in the case experienced a shared sense of anticipation, recognizing that accountability was no longer a distant possibility but an imminent reality. The arrest was not merely operational, it symbolized decades of perseverance, forensic diligence, and unwavering commitment to justice. Following the arrest, investigators conducted comprehensive interviews, gathering information about the suspect's movements, associates, and potential involvement in other crimes. The meticulously preserved forensic evidence from 2001 played a critical role in establishing the link between the suspect and Shannon's abduction. DNA samples collected 2 decades earlier matched the profile developed from the crime scene, providing incontrovertible scientific confirmation. This milestone underscored the importance of preserving evidence and maintaining meticulous records over extended periods. The legal process that followed required careful coordination among prosecutors, defense attorneys, and law enforcement. The case drew national attention due to the long period it had remained unsolved and the advanced forensic techniques that ultimately facilitated the suspect's identification. In court, every piece of evidence, from DNA samples to witness statements, was scrutinized to ensure it could withstand rigorous legal challenges. The prosecution presented a methodical case, emphasizing the integrity of the investigative process and the reliability of the scientific evidence. Throughout the proceedings, Shannon's family played a central role. Their testimony provided insight into the emotional toll of the crime and decades-long uncertainty. Their courage in facing the suspect and recounting their experiences highlighted the profound human impact of the crime. Community members attended hearings, reinforcing the collective memory of Shannon and the societal importance of holding perpetrators accountable. Public engagement continued to play a vital role, ensuring transparency and focus throughout the legal process. Even after the arrest, pressing questions lingered within the community and among viewers following the case. How can justice be fully achieved after such a long delay? What additional investigative steps are necessary to corroborate evidence beyond DNA? We invite viewers to reflect. If you were part of the investigative or legal team, What would you prioritize to ensure every detail was thoroughly examined? Your thoughts help sustain attention on cold cases and honor the persistence required to bring them to resolution. The legal proceedings also highlighted the evolution of forensic science. Advanced DNA profiling, genetic genealogy, and sophisticated database matching were instrumental in bridging the gap between the crime and the identification of a suspect. These scientific developments, combined with traditional investigative work, witness interviews, physical evidence collection, and behavioral analysis, created a robust case capable of withstanding decades of scrutiny. Shannon's case illustrates how scientific innovation can transform previously unsolvable cases into solvable ones. For Shannon's family and the community, the arrest was more than a procedural milestone. It symbolized the potential for closure after decades of uncertainty. While the pain of loss could never be undone, the apprehension of the suspect allowed the narrative to move from mystery to accountability. Law enforcement emphasized that the case was not yet complete. Prosecution, trial, and eventual sentencing were all essential to achieving justice, and careful preparation ensured that every step was legally sound. The trial demanded meticulous attention to detail. Attorneys on both sides examined the investigation, questioning evidence handling, forensic methods, and timelines. Each hearing highlighted the complexities inherent in cold cases, particularly those spanning decades. The prosecution relied heavily on preserved evidence and the credibility of investigative work, demonstrating that meticulous documentation and scientific rigor can endure the passage of time and withstand intense legal scrutiny. Throughout this stage, the community reflected on the lessons of Shannon's case. Her disappearance and eventual resolution emphasized the importance of sustained attention to missing persons cases, the necessity of evidence preservation, and the transformative impact of advancements in forensic science. Vigils, public discussions, and memorials ensured that Shannon's story, and the broader implications for child safety, remained visible and meaningful. Collaboration was central to the case's progression. Law enforcement, forensic specialists, prosecutors, and community advocates worked together to maintain focus, rigor, and accountability. Each participant's dedication was crucial, illustrating that solving cold cases is rarely the work of a single individual or agency. The combined efforts of professionals and the community ultimately made justice possible, despite the decades-long gap between the crime and the arrest. Another engagement question arises here. How important is it for families and communities to remain involved in the legal process of cold cases? Can persistent public attention influence outcomes, maintain investigative momentum, or ensure accountability? Sharing your thoughts contributes to understanding the societal role in pursuing justice and honoring victims like Shannon Paulk. Ultimately, Shannon Paulk's case demonstrates the intersection of perseverance, forensic innovation, and community vigilance. From her disappearance to the painstaking investigation, decades-long persistence, DNA breakthrough, and arrest, every step underscores the power of diligence, technology, and collective memory in achieving justice. While the courtroom proceedings represent the formal phase of accountability, the case itself remains a testament to the resilience of communities and families committed to ensuring that truth and justice prevail. The resolution of Shannon Paulk's case marked a moment of profound significance, not only for her family and the Prattville community but for the broader understanding of how persistence, forensic science, and public engagement converge to solve cold cases. After more than 2 decades of uncertainty, the identification and arrest of a suspect brought a measure of justice, offering long-awaited closure to those who had held on to hope for so many years. Yet even in resolution, the story of Shannon serves as a sobering reminder of the fragility of childhood, the enduring consequences of violent crime, and the critical importance of vigilance in safeguarding vulnerable members of society. Shannon's disappearance and eventual resolution also highlight the psychological and emotional toll that cold cases impose on families. Living for years in a state of uncertainty, often receiving few updates or leads, takes a profound emotional toll. The Paulk family's perseverance, attending memorials, engaging with law enforcement, and advocating for public awareness, was instrumental in keeping Shannon's case in the public eye. Their unwavering determination exemplifies the strength and resilience of families of victims, who continue to fight for justice even when the odds seem insurmountable. The legacy of Shannon's case extends beyond her family. It demonstrates the evolution of investigative techniques over time, from traditional detective work to the application of advanced forensic science. Evidence meticulously preserved since 2001 became instrumental in finally identifying the individual responsible for her abduction and murder. DNA analysis, genetic genealogy, and national database cross-referencing illustrate how technology can transform unsolvable cases into solvable ones, even decades after a crime has occurred. Shannon's story is a testament to the fact that no case is ever truly closed as long as investigators, families, and communities remain dedicated. For law enforcement professionals, Shannon's case serves as an example of best practices in cold case management. Meticulous evidence preservation, consistent case review, and collaboration across agencies proved critical in bridging the decades-long gap between crime and resolution. These lessons inform not only current investigations but also the procedures for future cases, emphasizing the importance of documenting every detail, maintaining rigorous protocols, and integrating emerging forensic technologies whenever possible. The cumulative work done in Shannon's case highlights the broader impact of methodical, patient, and technologically informed investigative work. The arrest and legal proceedings brought a measure of relief to the Paulk family and the community. Yet the case also encourages reflection on the broader societal responsibilities involved in preventing crimes against children. Shannon's story reminds us that vigilance, community awareness, and proactive reporting of suspicious activity are critical components of child safety. Schools, local organizations, and neighborhoods can learn from these tragedies, implementing preventive measures and educational programs to help protect the most vulnerable. The lessons of Shannon's story extend far beyond Prattville, resonating across communities nationwide. Even after justice was set in motion, the impact of Shannon's story continued to grow. The case inspired increased attention to cold cases and missing children, highlighting the essential role of forensic innovation and persistence in law enforcement. By sharing her story, we honor not only Shannon but also the countless other victims whose cases remain unresolved. Each cold case serves as a call to action, a reminder that ongoing investigation, public awareness, and technological progress can eventually bring answers and closure. Reflection on Shannon's case also raises important questions for the public. How can communities better support families of missing children? How can law enforcement and civilians collaborate more effectively to prevent similar tragedies? We invite viewers to consider these questions and think critically about their own roles in creating safer communities. Public engagement, awareness campaigns, and advocacy are all part of a broader strategy to ensure that cases like Shannon's are never forgotten and that justice remains attainable, no matter how much time has passed. Shannon's story also illustrates the intersection between human resilience and scientific progress. The painstaking work of detectives, forensic specialists, and community members over more than 20 years culminated in a breakthrough that was once thought impossible. This outcome demonstrates that even in the face of prolonged uncertainty, dedication and innovation can ultimately prevail. Her case serves as a blueprint for approaching other cold cases. Evidence preservation, persistent investigation, and integration of new technologies can transform the investigation of old cases into actionable resolutions. Moreover, the societal impact of Shannon's case is profound. It emphasizes the importance of collective memory in pursuing justice, the value of community involvement, and the power of storytelling in maintaining awareness of unresolved crimes. Each vigil, memorial, and public discussion contributed to sustaining focus on Shannon's case, highlighting the symbiotic relationship between community attention and law enforcement efficacy. The lessons learned from her story resonate beyond the immediate tragedy, reinforcing the importance of civic responsibility and vigilance in protecting children. Finally, Shannon Paulk's story reminds us that the pursuit of justice is rarely linear. From her disappearance to the painstaking long-term investigation, forensic advancements, the eventual arrest, and the ongoing legal process, every step underscores the intersection of diligence, technology, and collective effort. Shannon's legacy lives on not only through the resolution of her case but also in the broader awareness it inspires, encouraging communities, investigators, and viewers alike to remain vigilant, proactive, and committed to justice. This is the Cold Case Archive, where we preserve these stories not only to remember the past but to learn from it. Shannon's story is a powerful reminder of the importance of persistence, justice, and community engagement. If you found her story meaningful, please like this video, subscribe for more investigations into unsolved and solved cold cases, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice helps keep these memories alive. Thank you for watching and thank you for remembering Shannon Paulk with us.